Marley. I'm Charmaine, so it's such a pleasure to meet you today.
Thank you.
Did you have any trouble being able to access online through that Zoom link I sent you?
No, everything was great. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. So ideally, I'd love to meet with people in person, but this online platform is really convenient and certainly streamlines things. There are some things that are sometimes a little unusual though, and I mean, if something happens that you get disconnected or you can't hear me or there's some other glitch, then we'll just have a backup plan. I emailed you my phone number and I have your phone number as well. So just so that, if something goes awry, we can figure it out.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So I'm here today in my office. My door is closed and there isn't anybody else here. So this is a confidential conversation between us. And I just want to confirm that you're there alone as well.
Yeah, there's other people in the house, but I'm alone in this room.
Okay, excellent. Now, if something comes up that you need to attend to something or somebody comes in, don't worry, we can pause and then just reconvene from there. The other thing is that in terms of keeping our conversation private and confidential, I'm not recording anything, but I am just jotting down some notes because that helps me just keep track of the things that are important to you and that will also help frame our process going forward when we meet with Bob in the joint session. And so you're welcome to jot down notes as well, but I would just ask that you also not record either, on your cell phone or the laptop. And that's the same guideline we're going to have for Bob, but not only in the individual meetings, but also in the joint session. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
And you can agree to that? Okay,
Yes,
great.
I can.
Excellent. So we have about 15 minutes today, which isn't a lot of time, but I thought we could do it like this, is that I could tell you a little bit about the mediation process, just so that you're well oriented and in case you have any questions. And then I'm really interested in hearing about the situation that's going on at work and between you and Bob from your perspective. And as I said before, this is intended to be a confidential conversation because I want you to be able to feel free to speak clearly and openly to me about what's going on. There may be parts of your perspective that are going to be really important to bring up in the joint session so that Bob is aware of that, but that's something you and I will talk about. And for the most part, the mediation process is an opportunity for you to speak. And I'm really there as the guardian of that process and just helping facilitate the conversations. So it would be very unusual for me to be in a joint session and say, oh, well, Marley, when we met, you said this and that. Because if there is something that seems incongruent for me, I'm more likely just to ask if we could pause the meeting so that I could meet with each of you individually just to check in. And this is something we call caucusing. So if I'm ever, in a joint session wanting to meet with either of you separately, I would always meet with each of you separately. So it's not like I would just meet with one person and not the other. And those are just pause opportunities because sometimes we need to reset, or maybe I need to check in because I've kind of lost track of where, the story is and that kind of thing. So the mediation process, as you know, I mean, my job is as a neutral party. So that means I'm not here advocating for your position or for Bob's position. In fact, I don't even have an opinion on that, right? So I'm not there to say one of you was right and one was wrong. I've really been retained by your employer to help you have some good conversations to see what is possible to go forward in a way that is suitable for everybody, which will include Stan, because though Stan isn't part of the mediation process, he has an interest in this outcome. And one of the things that I'll be interested in talking to you and Bob about more thoroughly is what your expectations are as to what's shared with Stan, if anything. And I will also need to have a conversation with Stan about that, because even though he's paying for the mediation process, that doesn't mean that he's entitled to know all of the details of what it is that you discuss, but there may be some importance in providing him with a summary of the outcome or a discussion of some sort around the process. But this is entirely up to you and Bob. So we'll canvass that further when we meet. So far, so good. Any questions so far?
No, yeah, I think I'm pretty clear. Thanks.
Okay, great. So the only other thing that I think might be helpful for you to know is that the mediation process is one where we're really focusing on the things that are important to you. So your priorities, your expectations, the concerns you might have, sort of your hopes and goals for how this will all turn out. Sometimes it's important to kind of test what assumptions that either of you might be making, both about what is going on and what the future could look like. And it's really important that we're able to understand the things that you value, the things that are important to you, your beliefs, things that maybe you're really worried about, things that you need, because that helps create some parameters for how we measure your options. So there are many different ways in which conflicts can get resolved. And rather than kind of coming into the meeting saying, oh, this is what I want for an outcome, we take the time to seek to understand what is going on for each party around those priorities, expectations, etc. And then that way we can kind of form a goal statement that helps us measure the various options, bless you, the various ways in which we could resolve things. And because then there will likely be something that then resonates for both of you as the best out of the numerous different options that you could implement going forward. So with all of that in mind, I would love to hear from you around, what's all been going on and your perspective on the situation. So what would you like me to know?
Um, well, I guess like the reason why Stan wants us to have a mediation is because we haven't been getting along at work. We used to see each other, and then Stan kind of gave Bob an ultimatum, and Bob decided to break up with me. And then ever since, we haven't really been able to get along at work. And I know that Stan and Bob will say that we weren't getting along while we were together either. And that's why Stan gave him the ultimatum. But I don't really see it that way. I think that we were just a normal couple. We have ups and downs. And I guess sometimes when you work together, sometimes I guess that kind of comes across in what you work, like how you're working, because you're emotional or something like that at work. And it would be different if you didn't work together, because you'd probably just leave that at home. But when you're seeing the person maybe you're upset with, that can kind of just be noticed by other people, I guess. So I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. I think it was made into too big of a deal, and I think it was kind of inappropriate that Stan gave that ultimatum to Bob, and then Bob decided to break up with me, and I am really like irritated by that. That seems like a silly thing to do. Like, why would you choose your job over a relationship? But I guess that was his choice, and so we haven't been getting along ever since. And now Stan's just kind of like, you guys need to figure this out. And I don't, like, honestly, I don't really care. Like, I don't even need to work. My parents, like, I live in my parents' house. We have lots of money. I don't need to work. I just work to like keep busy. So I don't really care about this job. I could leave it, honestly. So, I mean, I guess coming to mediation is more just because I want to figure out if there's any way that I can like salvage my relationship with Bob. And that's like part of the reason why I'm even staying at this job, is because at least I still get to see him, even though we're not together. So I still get to spend time with him. And yeah, it's like rough. It's not like pleasant, but it's better than not seeing him at all. So that's kind of what's going on, I guess. And that's why I'm here.
Well, thank you for that overview. There are a few things that I am curious about that perhaps you could give me some more information. Can you talk a little bit about the workplace? What's the type of work that you do?
So it's a home inspection business. Sorry, got
That's
some
okay.
allergies going on. So it's a home inspection business. So basically what happens is if there's like a new build or if somebody's buying a house, and it could be a new build or it could be not a new build, but those are like kind of the two inspection styles that we do. So when somebody's buying a house, we go and just make sure everything's good, and we alert people to if there's things that maybe they need to take into consideration about their price. So like, for example, sometimes someone will have a property listed for like 300 grand, and then we'll come and see that the shingles need to be done. And that's like a pretty significant thing that needs to be attended to. So sometimes we'll tell the buyer that, and then the buyer will renegotiate the price point.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, and then the other piece that we do is when there's brand new builds, all residential, we only do residential work, but if there's a brand new build, we come in and just make sure everything's good to go. It's a little bit of like a gray area because residential stuff isn't like bylawed the same way that commercial stuff is. Okay. So people can get away with a lot, but it's like people really appreciate the work we do because then they know they're kind of getting the best deal, like the correct price point, and then also making sure that they're just, safety comes into it for sure, but it's also just like, good quality product.
Right. Then it helps you from, there being surprises then too.
Yeah.
I know I had a situation when I was purchasing my home that we did need new shingles, and so it was really helpful to have that identified so it could be factored into those negotiations. So obviously a company that must be pretty busy, I'm guessing, at certain times of the year. And what is your role within the company?
So we all kind of do the same kind of work, if that makes sense. So like Stan is our boss, so he owns the company. And then we kind of have like these like crews that go out to various homes. Okay. So Bob and I, because Bob is like quite senior, we've always kind of been on the same crew, and it's not like a very big company. So like at most we would have like 2 or 3 crews. So it's not really, because I know that one thing that has been talked about is just like not having Bob and I work together, but it's just not really feasible given how small our company is. Like usually, like if it's a really big site, maybe there's 5 of us, but usually it's only like 1 or 2 of us, maybe 3 on each site. Okay. So we usually have a crew leader. So Bob is usually the crew leader, and then like we have paperwork we have to go through. So we have like all the checklists, and we check each part of the house. So, and each of us kind of have that same role. Like obviously like the buck stops with whoever the crew leader is, but each of us have the same kind of training, and we're checking the same things. So some days I might be on the roof, like checking the roof, and some days I might be checking the water heater. So sometimes I might be like doing like a little bit of a survey of the backyard. So it just really depends. We just kind of like rotate who does what. And again, it also just depends on the size of the property, because sometimes if it's a relatively small property, you maybe only need like 1 or 2 people.
Oh, okay.
Look things over. So
the crews aren't always 2 or 3 people. It depends on the size, and everyone has the same training. Has everybody worked there for the same length of time?
No, like Bob is more senior than I am, but I think I'm probably equal seniority or about, or maybe more seniority than most of the other people. Okay. It's not, like it's not necessarily a job that people like stay in for a very, very long time. It's kind of like any kind of trade job. Like lots of people, like there's some people like Stan that just do it forever, but then there's lots of people that, we'll have a student with us who's just there for the summer, and then they're going back to school in the fall or something. So, right. And that's like another reason why the crews tend to be so small, and it wouldn't really make sense for Bob and I to be on separate crews, because the reliability of other people is so low too. Like young kids sometimes like they'll be like hungover and just like won't show up and stuff. So it's like it's nice to have at least like 1 or 2 crew members that you know you can kind of count on. So
Right, because you need to, it sounds like you have to be kind of flexible and fluid in some of the scheduling then.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay. So, and Marley, I feel like I've just barely started to be able to talk with you, and I know that our time is up here for today's purposes, but just I have a quick other clarifying question, and then we'll sort of talk about what happens next. And you had mentioned that there's always a crew leader. Is that something that also rotates, through the crews, that any given day somebody's identified, or?
Well, like I would be a crew leader if I was the most senior person on the
So it's
job.
whoever's the most senior.
Yeah. So like none of our student workers would ever be a crew leader.
Got it. And so if you and Bob were on the same crew together, because you said that Bob is more senior to you, he would be the one that was always be the crew leader then in that context? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. That's very helpful. And I know that there's like a whole lot more for us to talk about and more to the story, but this gives me a really good sense of that working environment that you're in. And I'm going to be having a similar conversation with Bob just to get a sense of the situation from his perspective too. And then when we have our joint meeting, we'll go over things like ground rules and sort of some housekeeping things. Our meeting will likely be about a 2-hour meeting. It doesn't mean you have to be there for the full 2 hours, but 2 hours can go by pretty quickly, we find, when we start getting into a good conversation. And there's likely a lot more to the story that both of you are going to want to be talking about. And so I really look forward to finding out more about that and helping you and Bob both identify not only the issues that you need to sort of sort out, like what are the problems and what are the topics that need to be discussed, but also to uncover some of those things that are really important to both of you, to see if we can find some common ground to canvas and options. You already mentioned, an option that's been identified about trying to schedule you in separate crews, but you've also recognized where that would be challenging. So though that might still be one of the options, it may be something that ends up not working, because as you evaluate it, you recognize it not only doesn't really fit your interests, but it might just not be practical. So there'll be lots of things for us to talk about. If in the meantime you have a question, don't hesitate to give me a call or shoot me off an email. Otherwise, once I've met with Bob, I will be in touch with you to confirm the time and the day that we're going to be meeting. Make sure you have a link, because I presume we'll continue to do this in an online format.
Okay, great. Thank
All
you for your
right.
time.
Thanks, Marley. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.